Good morning from the Mediterranean. Welcome to our second session in our course on constructive storytelling. Happy you are back again, ready for some theory. Today I'll give you some input, many aspects, many facts. That's why I thought we start at the sea with a nice picture and sound. And now let's dive in the details. I've prepared you a beautiful presentation on the theory of constructive storytelling, like the storytelling for your Utopias. And the information I gathered here, I collected over the course of my years of working as a journalist and storyteller. And also I have information from, for example, the Bonn Institute, which is an organization in Germany that helps to bring more constructive storytelling into media, which is so important. And then there are other organizations working on that. For example, the Solution Journalism Network, which was one of the first organizations that wanted to enforce constructive journalism. And they all have their tools and tricks and tips and theories on how to enforce this. And I put something together from all of this. So basically, what constructive storytelling means is it helps us with the filters we have. We humans, we see the world through filters because, of course, the world is so big, so huge, so chaotic. We cannot see everything. We cannot understand everything. It would be way too much for our brain to understand. So we have filters through which we organize reality and allow only certain information in. Like through the course of a whole day, even you cannot remember everything that's happening. You cannot remember everything you read. You cannot. It's just impossible to take everything in that's out there. And there are two very strong filters, and one is the negativity bias filter, and the other the confirmation bias filter. The negativity bias means that you rather take in negative information than neutral or even helpful information, because the feeling of danger and fear is the strongest we have. And this was helpful in ancient times when we were still living with the tigers. But these days, when we are living with phones, it's sometimes rather not so helpful to always jump on the negative and on the danger and the drama and the chaos. And the confirmation bias is the filter that rather lets in information that already fits into our worldview. Like, for example, when it's about prejudices, yeah? So when we have, and not just in a negative way, like, I don't know, for example, when we have the worldview that when I stop holding something, it will fall down, then of course it's helpful and I will take care of it and I will not test it all the time again and again. Oh, is this apple falling down if I stop holding it now? I mean, it would drive us crazy to test all the information all the time, again and again and again. We couldn't do anything. But sometimes the confirmation we have about reality should be maybe tested, and that comes into place when it's about prejudices, when we, for example, think about a certain group, when we say, okay, the people who vote for this and that party, they are all somehow idiots or stupid and they must be racist, and we don't even talk to them anymore, or we don't even try to understand them as humans or where they are coming from, then of course it's not very helpful. And constructive storytelling is helping us to deal with those two filters. They broaden them, they break them up a little bit for us to see the world not so horrible, because actually it is not that horrible. And to dive a little bit deeper into both of them, first the negativity bias, because this is basically what we try to overcome or outbalance with constructive storytelling. And it means that we focus rather on danger and problems and things that are not working than on possible solution, than on nice encounters we had, than on things that are working. And it's not just a feeling or just a habit we have, it's actually really a biological reaction from our body. We get arousal, we get adrenaline, we get certain hormones are leaving our body when we see information that is an alarm, because that was helpful for us when we were still living with the tigers. And for thousands and thousands of years, our body was developed in that way, that the little tiniest something of danger, we have to be alert. And then all our body is in alarm. So it's not just a habit, or it's not just curiosity or something like this. It's really our body doing this and leading our attention towards where there might be a danger, where there might be a potential problem. Yeah. And it's not just that our attention jumps to it more easily and ignores the rest, or thinks the rest is not so important. We have to put our attention on the things that are not working, on the possible danger. It's also that we remember longer. Things that are not working stick with us longer. And if you think about maybe some of the relationships you have, that when once trust is broken, or there was a situation where you thought, oh, I'm not sure, why did this person behave that way? Then it takes a lot more than one other situation where you regain trust, or where you think, okay, maybe I can have a normal relationship with this person again. So one negative information or experience goes so much deeper into our whole system, body, memory, mind, than a positive information or experience. And also, when you think, what do you remember? What do you remember from the news? You remember the horrors. Of course, they talk a lot more about horrors, but still, what sticks with you longer are the horror stories. And there is actually the saying, when it bleeds, it leads, in the media. The horror stories, they sell more easier when there's blood on the front page, when there's drama, when there's chaos, when there is catastrophe. People want to know what's happening. It's also this effect when you drive by an accident, everybody's watching what happened, even though you can't even help. But it's this automatical human habit to jump towards a problem, to jump towards a catastrophe. It's something we really have to forcibly draw our attention away from. And it was helpful thousands of years ago, when it really, our life in the moment depended on that, to understand that, oh, maybe there's a danger, and to be super alert for every little something that's happening out there in the bushes. But right now, when we are super alert of everything that's happening out there in the bushes, we go crazy. And this is also why so many people are, where we have this effect of the depression coming from climate catastrophe, or people avoiding the news because they get more and more depressed from what they see. And this negativity bias, it's so strong because it's inside of our body. It's our body playing us a trick and showing us the reality in a way more negative way than it is. And no mistake, or don't misunderstand me. Of course, there are incredible horrors happening out there in this world. I say it again: genocide, climate crisis, climate catastrophe. But it's not only this that is happening. There are also other things happening. And we forget about them, like people getting together, people overthrowing autocrats and dictators, and people finding alternative ways of housing and agriculture, and so many things that are happening. But what we mostly remember is the horrors that are happening. Okay, and this negativity bias is so super strong because on the one hand, it's our body who is bringing our attention towards the horrors and the negative things. And then on the other hand, it's also the stories that are already around us from the media. They are mostly negative because this is how media works. When it bleeds, it leads. Those are the stories that they can sell. And those are actually also, to be honest, stories that we want to see and we want to read. That's where we put our attention. The second filter we're having is the so-called confirmation bias. And that means that the information that already confirms our worldview is so much easier for us to process than the information that contradicts our worldview. And I mean, this is kind of logical, no? When you have something that fits in your fridge, it's easier to put it in than if you have to rearrange all your fridge to have it in there. So, and that's why we focus on this information that we already believe is true and that it reinforces our worldview. This also gives us a feeling of safety and control, which is the feeling we lack or we are really looking for in those times of chaos and catastrophes. We're looking for safety. We're looking for something that we can control in this world that seems so uncontrollable and so unsafe. So we rather fit an information in that confirms our reality, but maybe the source is not so safe, but who cares? It fits our worldview. And this can be dangerous, of course. It's just so easier to process. It's so easier. It's also, again, like food. It's so much easier to eat something you like and you've eaten all your life than to get accustomed to something that maybe your taste buds are not so familiar with, but it could be a bit healthier. Yeah. And that leads to this effect that we sometimes even discredit the sources of an information that doesn't fit our reality, like killing the messenger. We rather kill the messenger than digest the message if we don't like the message or if this message doesn't fit into our reality. Like the most intense example, of course, is the Holocaust and how this could happen. The information was there, maybe not so obviously these days on the phones where we can see all the horrors happening live streamed on the phone. But people knew that Jews were disappearing, that Jews were getting killed. But still, they didn't want to acknowledge it. They didn't want to believe it. And maybe you've seen this movie, The Zone of Interest, where the family of the director of the concentration camp is living directly next to the concentration camp where the chimneys are smoking. But they are leading their happy, clappy family life with children's birthdays just right next to the wall, next to the smoking chimneys. And they somehow arrange this information into their reality that it fits, that it makes sense, that it's okay. And so you see how powerful this is, how powerful our filters are, that we bend reality so that it fits. And this can be dangerous in a world where we are separated more and more into those bubbles of information where we only reinforce our information anyway. And of course, it is exhausting to check information all the time, to check the sources all the time. And you, as I said before in the example, you cannot check all the time. Is the apple falling down if I let it loose? Of course, you can't do that. Of course, we need those filters. But also we need to be aware of how powerful they are and that they are sometimes even more powerful than reality. And if we know this, we can work with this. And there are 3 aspects or 3 areas in which we can work with this. And those 3 areas, it's like I said in the beginning, I put them together from all the information I had found so far on what constructive storytelling is and also what helped me with storytelling. And it's no rocket science. It's kind of obvious, but when you know how powerful the biases are and the filters are, you also need you know how powerful the medicine against it has to be, and how often you have to use it, and how much attention you have to put on it. Even though it sounds obvious, but our automisms, they always lead us into the other direction. Like, we know that smoking is not good for our health, but anyway, we smoke. Or with other things. And with health, it's very easy to understand. We know it's not healthy, but we do it anyway. It's an automism. So one thing that's helping, and that's very banal and obvious, is focus on solutions and not on the problem and the drama. But then now, that's the exercise for you for the next 3 days. Check the stories around you. Check the stories people tell you, the stories you see in the media or wherever you're consuming stories. And then also be honest and check the stories you tell. The stories you tell yourself and the stories you tell other people. Are they mostly about solutions and about community and about things that are bringing us towards a more constructive and more just world? Or are they mostly about things that are not working, about problems, about catastrophes, chaos, horror? Check them and write them down for 3 days. Please do that, because I mean, now in your mind you filter and say, right. But when you actually really write it down and see it for yourself, catch yourself, or you can make like have a little alarm bell with you, and you ring it each time there is someone telling you a story about all the horrors out there. And not that they are not true, but see if there's a balance. How often do you ring the bell for something about catastrophe, drama, horrors? And how often do you ring the bell about a story for solution, community, and more justice? Then you see that it sounds very banal, but it is so difficult. It is so difficult. Try it out for yourself. Then the next pillar is try to find a multitude of perspectives. There are so many perspectives to see this world. Not just two, not just good and evil, not just perpetrator and victim, not just employer and employee. It's always such a multitude of perspectives, and it's almost no problem. There are just two sides. There are many sides. And then the third pillar is be courageous and see the emotions, talk about the emotions. We are human beings. We do have emotions. Our emotions also give us the filters to see reality, and then to rearrange reality and tell the stories. You put your attention there where the strongest emotion is, and then what emotion is it? Is it fear? Is it love? Is it disgust? Be aware of this, and also tell the stories with emotion, about people with emotions. We are not machines. We are not Excel sheets. And like I said, it's so strong. The biases, the filters are so strong. See it as an addiction. Just one time using the focus of the solution on the solution instead of the problem, it will not break the filter. It will not open and broaden the bias. You have to do it again and again and again and again. And also not just after this course, you will have understood it, or you will have had it inside your system, digested, and automatically jump rather on the solutions. It's a course of a lifetime. I am still in it. I'm still in it. So to get more deeper and to have it more integrated into your system, what does it actually mean to focus rather on solutions than on the problems or on the horrors? It could mean that you focus 70 to 80% of your attention, time, and effort on solutions rather than on problems. And this now, again, can be in anything. You don't have to be a storyteller, a journalist, a writer, a social media person. We are telling stories all the time. Ourselves, the people in our surrounding, our families, at the workplace. Where is your attention going? And also when you're in your work, are you only always focusing on the things that are not working, where you have to find a solution, but you're actually not really spending time, attention, and effort on the solution, and then again talking about possible solutions? This makes actually a really big shift. Just to be aware that you spend most of your time and effort on the solution side and not on the problem side. And solution can be something soft. It doesn't have to be, oh, I found the solution for the climate catastrophe. You will not find the solution for the climate catastrophe. But maybe your talent or your interest, your workplace is somehow connected with community and humanity. And then you can just reinforce this, and this is then part of the solution. And then you focus your attention 70, 80% on building community. Of course, if you have a community, it will not solve whatever the problem of the climate crisis is, to keep it as an example, because it's like the biggest problem we're facing right now. But still, when you're only thinking about the crisis, and what's all not working, you will not really inspire others, and you will not get into action, and you will actually not enjoy the things you're doing so much. And it's actually not really helpful. It's not helpful to be in misery, because you will not manage to bring more people on board. And we need all people on board in whatever problem we are working. And of course, you do need to know the problem. You have to have an understanding of the problem to find an adequate solution. Like we had the example with the plastic straws. If you put all your attention on the plastic straws to eliminate plastic straws and plastic bags, it will also not solve the climate crisis. We need to change our systems. And then to eliminate the plastic straws can be part of the solution, but it will never be the whole solution. Or, for example, in the genocide, of course, it does not help to throw food packages over Gaza. This will not end the suffering. It will maybe diminish it a little bit, but to end the suffering, of course, you would have to stop the bombs and the occupation and all this. So you need to understand the problem to find an adequate solution. And the solution can also be to look rather for things people or opposing sides have in common they can agree on, and to have a starting ground from there to start discussions, and not always look for separations. Like even in the movements where people are mostly on the same side and fighting for the same things, still people are looking so much for separation, and you said this wrong, you said that wrong, you used the gender in the wrong way, and now I will not speak with you again anymore. That's not really helpful. I mean, of course we have to respect people's identities and things, but we also have to look for the things we have in common rather than for the things that are separating us. And then when you work with solutions, of course, see and name the limits of those solutions. Like a vegetable garden will not solve the climate crisis, but of course it will make a contribution. Then you need, of course, facts and evidence. This is basic normal journalism or normal storytelling or normal ways to see the world. But in the world we live in, it sometimes seems to be helpful to remember this, that actually we do need facts, and we are not talking without facts when we talk about constructive stories. And also be aware that there can never be one single idea, project, product, or anything that can solve a multidimensional crisis or problem like the climate crisis, or also like the genocide. There are so many stakeholders involved, so many timelines and aspects. It's not one thing that can help, that can solve it, but every little thing makes a contribution, and then it's important to understand what kind of contribution and to focus on this contribution and not on why actually it will not solve the problem. Of course, it will not solve the problem, but that doesn't make it less of a solution. Then the multitude of perspectives means context, baby. No problem is just with good and bad. There are often so many stakeholders involved, so many timelines, so many aspects of it. And you can have a look at your problem from not only different angles and point of views or ideologies, also from time. Like, for example, Palestine. Do you start with the 7th of October, or do you start to tell the story 1948? Then about what space are you talking? What is the area? Is it just one little village, or is it the whole wild world? And exactly the same problem you can tell from both perspectives. Then you can make a choice if you want to tell the story from a very tiny detail or from the very huge picture. Then, of course, the person who's telling the story also has a perspective. And this, we have to keep in mind that this is what we often forget, because there is no objectivity. Every storyteller brings their own experience and their own point of views. Sometimes there can also be contradictory truth and views out there. And also, a person is not only good or bad. A victim can also have its mistakes and flaws, and we are all just humans. Just because someone is a victim doesn't automatically make this person right. And the same on the other side, just because someone did something horrible doesn't mean everything this person is doing is horrible. And we often forget about this multitude of perspectives that gives context to problems and to horrors, and that also the context and the many perspectives also again give us so many possibilities to find solutions from all perspectives. Courage for emotions. We are emotional beings. There is no objectivity. So be aware that there is no objectivity. That doesn't mean that there is no truth, but it means we all have our filters through which we see the world. And facts do not land as deep as emotions. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the climate crisis. We know everything about the climate crisis. Science is telling us since decades already what we should do. We're not doing it. Why are we not doing it? It's not because there are no facts. It's because our emotions are in the way. And then when you know that everything is filtered through feelings, what feeling is your story feeding? Is it feeding the feeling of fear, or is it feeding the feeling of inspiration, of courage? And then do you want that? Do you want that? Just be aware. It doesn't mean that you shall not talk about fear or use fear in your storytelling. It's a very powerful feeling, or anger. But be aware of the feelings you're feeding with your stories. We are so complex, multidimensional beings. And so often the stories, also in movies and in books, people are so one-dimensional, but this is not how we are. And stories land when we connect on a human level. This is, I guess, what you can see when you have conversations. You cannot have conversation with a person that you do not even respect as a human. But we are all humans. And the challenge is to respect each other nevertheless. That's actually also what human rights are all about. That even if someone has done the most horrible thing, human rights account also for this person. And then maybe we can have the courage and humility to see people who have done horrible things also as humans. That doesn't mean that you have to take in racism or disrespectful behavior towards yourself, but it means to see the other person as a human, and then you can decide: are you taking it in? Are you drawing a boundary, or how are you dealing with it? And then there's something I've learned from one of my teachers. It's called depth without drowning. Yes, we have feelings. Yes, some feelings, many feelings are messy and also dramatic. We don't have to share all of it. Just because it's a feeling doesn't, and it's true, doesn't mean we have to share it, and we have to drain other people with this feeling and drown them, take them down with us. So this was a quick journey, treasure hunt through all the aspects that are touched by constructive storytelling, just to give you an overview. We could dive deeper in all of the slides, but so that you have an overview and that you have some tools and coordinations you can work with. So I invite you now to check all the stories that are around you. Are they constructive? Are they true? And if a story is a negative story, it doesn't mean it's not a constructive story. But is it within a context that is really true? Is the balance right? Is the importance on the right level? So this is my invitation for you for the next 3 days. Check your stories. Are they constructive? Are they true? And also make some alarm bells. Is this a constructive story? Is this a destructive story? And what does that actually mean for you? What's a constructive story for you? And what's a destructive story for you? And by what are you surrounded? And what are you feeding into the world? Thank you for listening, and see you in the next session. Bye-bye.